Welcome back, everybody, for part two of this little double header orange card, blue card. I am joined now by David. You know him from Let's Talk UVS. David, how are you feeling tonight, my man?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling really good. I had $50 on the Saints and they just got their tails kicked, but that's all right.
That one wasn't
Universes wise, I'm
close.
feeling good.
What was the spread?
It was Broncos were favored to win by 2 points, but um
It wasn't.
I just wanted to be what do you say, counter. I wanted to
You wanted to play
I
anti-meta?
Yeah, I wanted to play anti-meta, and so everybody in my fantasy football group chat, I said, anybody who wants, like this message, and you got $10 on the Broncos, and I'll take the Saints. And then like everybody liked the message. And it turns out that was dumb.
You know, you know what's
But it
not
was bold.
dumb? You know what's not dumb was gambling on death decks back in Atlanta. They did a lot of gambling. They got a lot of casino nicknames. I don't know. Bing Pot was one that got used on commentary. Not a fan of bingo and jackpot together. I didn't have the heart to, like when you're doing commentary, you got to have that rapport. You got to have that connection. And I didn't have the heart to tell Bromley how bad of a nickname Pot is. But that's not a good nickname for these cards. But yeah, I was starting to call them Yahtzee decks because the thrill of when you hit, you get to shout Yahtzee, and it's not really a casino deck because the original casino decks were decks that play high difficulty cards with low controls, and the casino element is not checking poorly on a high difficulty card. These were safety threes decks that were
Mm.
playing Twisting Azure Inferno, so they weren't really gambling on passing cards. It wasn't as high risk of an environment. It's really just a weirdly modified consistency when you end up milling as many cards as four combined firepower. We're talking a full fourth of your deck gets milled. You got to expect to hit some effects. But I asked Broberg this at the beginning. I wanted to get your thoughts on the Atlanta metagame, the format, the diversity of it as a whole, both going into Atlanta, and did anything change after playing in Atlanta?
Yeah, I think you and I kind of nailed it in our orange card, blue card pre-Atlanta. We basically said there's going to be risky encounter decks, smiling decks, and Rodans.
Yeah.
And those are going to be what are vying for the top place. And when you look at top eight, it was exactly that. It was Rodans, a couple Smilings, and this risky encounter deck. The surprise was that it ended up being Irwin, but that really shouldn't have been a surprise looking back on it. Um, since Irwin also gets to play some defense, because like I was thinking about Toga 1 would be the risky encounter Yahtzee deck. But Toga 1 doesn't get any defense, and Irwin can be a little forgiving if something doesn't go um, perfectly on your turn. You can actually survive, and especially a player like Broberg, who also has experience playing Death Eraser Head in a very very similar
And
build with
Momo.
sim
And
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 Momo.
and destroying one for -2 speed is something he's used to.
True, yeah. So he's kind of been prepared for this deck, and so Irwin was a surprise, but it shouldn't have been.
I want to point out,
Um,
because you're referencing the last podcast, we sat there and talked about the ambition of Irwin Smith. And we mentioned that this card should be more present, but the only reason why is because there's only like two characters on there and how scary it is to be a seven-hander. But I think we even talked about how Irwin got the biggest glow up from the most recent erratas, right? Like Mikasa getting
mm,
hit and Reiner getting hit, because Reiner is ruining all your foundations before you get to use them for what you want, right? So that was definitely like if he was on the cusp, he might have bumped up a lot higher than we thought, and only one person was really on that deck, on that version of the deck.
yeah, or I had kind of written Irwin off a little early because I when I looked at Irwin, I just thought, why would I play Irwin if I could play Rodan? Like Rodan is just so much better than this character. And Broberg actually in my Discord, Kevin said, I'll take a slight downgrade to Rodan to be on different symbols.
Yeah,
And
he
it turns
did.
out, yeah, if you get to be like 75% of Rodan, but now you're on the death symbol and you're getting risky encounter, then maybe that is enough
Yeah.
to overcome the difference.
Yeah, it's very interesting because to me the biggest surprises were really the omissions from decks. I talked about it. I did a whole video breaking down the top 16 and that took like 2 full hours because most of the stuff that I talked about was a lack of barrier shield, a lack of cape of no return. I expected very much people to be playing decoy duplicate. Decoy duplicate is pretty popular at my locals. I had one player actually on Monday at our local championship play Mirio. They're like a returning player, so they're not really new, but they are new to this version of the game. And they wanted to play decoy duplicate and just didn't own any and didn't know who to ask, right? So like I was expecting those cards to show up and the Rodans were just playing 4 vertical maneuvering equipment. They did have some number of barrier shield, but like people weren't maxed out. People, the rhetoric before the event was you gotta 1-for-1 everyone's attacks. You gotta play the Genkai's guidances, and you gotta have the 4 barrier shields and the 4 invincible bodies,
Yeah.
and like that just wasn't true. And that's the kind of rhetoric that at the beginning of every format is never true. And while people are probably not excited at the character spread, I think you got to look at the way that Attuned shapes the different decks. And you have to look at how even the 2 Smiling Titans have a lot of the same cards, but the few differences they have, and again, the lack of cards that they're playing, the ones that they're choosing not to play that everyone tells you have to play, those are dictating the differences in how they play the game. And again, character diversity notwithstanding, I think that that's more diversity than you'll see from most card games.
Yeah, I really liked the Atlanta Regional. I I really liked it. Felt like we had a pretty good spread of different styles and yeah, the 2 Smilings. By the way, those are the 2 Smilings that I had the most practice against. Justin and Andrew going into the event.
That's true, yeah.
Um,
I watched a lot
both
of
of them,
Andrew's games.
yeah, they were very very different smiling lists. Like that Andrew was running like 4x unexpected outcomes, punishing you for trying to sculpt against him
Yeah.
and taking away your best attack in your hand. And Justin was running League Invitation, which was doing a lot of damage against me in our practices, and he was running that 9 difficulty that flips 2 or flips 1 2 difficulty foundation. So my big smiling tech piece was oh, I can't remember it. The Air Foundation, where I can discard a card for like -8 speed, dash from disaster,
Dash,
and
dash
he would
from
just
disaster.
flip it. Yeah, and so that was doing a lot of damage against me. So they were very different smiling builds, which I liked. The other thing that we got right was we said there would be no ponies,
Yeah.
um, and there
Pony just
wasn't. There
dies
were some
now.
on win and ends. There were some on win and ends that were close. And I said I would be shocked if a life symbol deck made top 16. We had one life symbol deck make it, and they got annihilated in the first round. They
They got
got
the
paired
bad
against, it was
matchup.
a Ymir against a Smiling, and the Smiling went first. And so
Yeah.
the writing was on the wall.
Yeah, I think that player commented on my video breakdown where I was like, we talked about Ymir being a bad matchup because they don't have the defense. And the Ymir player commented and said, "Yeah, I'm not trying to play defense in this format. We're just trying to play 7 hand size aggro. 7 hander gets a big damage pump, bigger than anyone else. Like, don't because there's no Idun box, right? And everyone's like, oh well, that's your only defense on life. And if they answer that, it's like don't even play it. Like, there's so few assets in the top 16, which was really really interesting. But before I get away from the Smiling Titans, one thing I loved about the 2 different Smiling Titans is Andrew had like 5 actions sideboarded, but he didn't have Genkai's in the main. He didn't have Koenma's task in the main, but he had 5 actions in the sideboard. And then the only action Justin had was for Koenma's task, and he mainboarded it. And so
Mhm.
it's very funny to me that probably if there wasn't open deck list, Andrew would side in actions. Uh, and if they had ever like played head to head, because they were pretty close in the bracket. I think if Justin had won in top 4, they would have played, right? So it's just very funny to me that like even the two Smilings are not playing Genkai's mainboarded, and one of them's not playing it at all. They're playing like the counter to Genkai's. So there could have been I don't know how interesting it really would have been, but there could have been some interesting interactions in a Smiling versus Smiling that I don't think we ever saw the mirror match on stream.
It would have been fun, and if the mirror match had happened, Smiling Titan would have been hit
Yeah, that's
on
true.
the on the ban and errata list the next Tuesday. But because Irwin slayed him, it. You know what this event reminds me of? It reminds me of younger Toguro's first big event where Tam Cardwell won with Asui 3. And then for the next month, all I heard was, you don't need to change younger because Asui 3 clearly just dominates it.
Yeah.
We have found the answer. And it's like, well,
Just
no,
block,
that's
idiot.
yeah,
Just
it's like this is a
block.
player. This is one of the best players in the game who has played hundreds of hours of Asui, and now we have Kevin Broberg. It's like you
and
cannot just say, "Oh, just be Broberg."
and Tam's deck was like decidedly anti-younger because everyone was so fixated on just play all the high attacks, overload one zone, play as many attacks as you draw, play out your whole hand, and 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 Tam played the water deck that recycles blocks, draws a card every time it blocks, and played every possible piece of speed aid, and still was like just barely eking it out. And people were like, "See, Taguro's fine," and it was very funny. I thought that was one of the true comedy moments because card games, the Broberg said this in the first hour, like they're about extrapolating small, almost what you would think are insignificant amounts of information, and playing to those tiny, tiny edges. And Universes probably has more edges than any other card game. If you think of Magic as a 6-sided die, Universes is 10 or 20 sides, and so there's so many different angles that we talk about, right? So many different things that you have to compartmentalize and focus on, and that little edge of just Asui gets to draw a card every single attack, actually has the opportunity to you know block the 7 attack string, and it takes every single resource to do it. And yeah, like you said, a lot of people forget that the players overcoming these format demons are people who have played for a decade. They're people who have won events, they've won regionals, they're not strangers to the high pressure moments, and so they've prepped for these matchups, right? They don't go into they don't go into the event blindly, and they don't pick a deck that has a bad matchup against the boogeymen. So
Yeah, and the other thing is, like Kevin's list, you could easily look at it and say, "Oh, this is just a brain dead." Twisting Azure, risky encounter, combined firepower, remove everything that hits your discard pile. Like, this is just a brain dead deck. It's just it's a monkey deck. You just
just
play
another
it
combined
and
firepower deck.
yeah, but it's actually so complex to actually play, sequence properly, and there's a lot of deck building that actually happens in decks like that because you look at like Kevin's list and there are tons of cuts
Yeah,
of death staple cards that other players would have put in. But because Kevin's going all in on this strategy, he's using cards that like he might have been the only person running a couple of those foundations in like the entire event. Um and there's something to be said there in the deck building of here's my core idea. All of my cards are around my core idea. Yeah, so I think that like the deck that Kevin's list, there's more deck building genius there than meets the eye, and then I think the actual playing experience of it is probably more difficult uh, than it looks on face.
Yeah, I can say without a doubt when I copied Travis's Elder Taguro list, everyone knew what it was doing by that point, so it made it a lot harder to navigate close matchups. But it
Mm.
was at first very random. Like trying to replicate the kind of plays he made on the same turn count and the same resources he did was incredibly difficult. And again, like when people know how to play around it, play to specific outs, it did make it like 10 times more difficult. But there were people in Top Cuts who got to see his deck list and got to know,
Mhm.
kind of what was going on. And it's very funny, like a combined firepower deck that has to hit specific things like the Elder Taguro list is very different, I think, than the Irwin list where it can destroy it from the stage and it's all in on these enters the discard pile style of effect. And I will say, like the level 0 right after you see it, especially right after you lose to it, you're just like, what can you do, man? Risky encounters, combined firepower, bada bing, bada boom. But like that's not really fair to Kevin or his deck or the games he played. If you actually followed the matches we got to see him on stream, you're right. It's a lot of tiny little things, and Kevin himself admits a lot of it is luck that has to go right. That's what it takes to win a tournament. It's got to be, little things here and there that fall into place, little things your opponent misses. Almost every tournament winning, almost every time I've ever talked to like a tournament winner in any card game, like one of the first things that they talk about is, yeah, man, back in the last round on my winning in, I got so lucky my opponent misplayed, or my opponent totally
Yep.
bricked in Top Cuts and like I got a free win when I shouldn't have. Like there's always like some moment like that. And we saw Broberg hit the Aaron's trials like back to back turns off random mills and things like that, like right when it mattered. So there's a lot of little things that have to fall into place. But I 100% understand where people are coming from when they look at the Top Cuts list and they go, oh, it's a bunch of Rodans, it's Toga and Godzilla, it's what's the other one, Smiling Titan, and then a deck that one had Risky Encounter and Combined Fiber. I get it, I so get it. But if you look at the omissions, if you look at the things that people aren't playing, like Genkai's Guidance is only a one of for Broberg. He took it out. He sideboarded
Mhm.
Grenadier Bracers. Like that's such a weird choice to go, okay, there's gonna be some matchup where I can only hit the last attack, and when I do, I'm gonna have to dump all of the bracers in it. Like, I just can't imagine anyone else not only making that choice, but we saw it happen on stream. I thought the Grenadier was mainboarded, but I've been talking too long. I'll let you talk.
Yeah,
But
the
again,
farewell between friends too, being in the sideboard and coming in certain matchups as a complete surprise when people are not ready for it. I'm not sure if that's like a going second card since he can survive the 2 check uh, better than going first or but
you
farewell
just
between
ignore
friends
it.
just a very very powerful card that I expected a lot more people to be on, but because it was a 2 check, people just
And
didn't put it in.
and because it's an order card, because one of the things I've heard is people downplaying what Irwin Smith brings to the enters discard pile theme. Like I think the fact that he destroys a foundation on face offensively and defensively, more readily than like Elder Taguro who can only do it defensively, is a big deal for this style of lineup. But then on top of that, the order symbol in an attuned world lets him play farewell between friends. What other firepower deck have you ever seen play farewell between?
None. Yeah, none.
Like it's ludicrous to think that the format shouldn't have, known entities, and that's kind of where I settled talking about it earlier with Kevin. Is I'm glad when there is some reliance on like shared information that creates the metagame. I don't think it should be 16 random decks, you know? I don't
Mm.
think that we're in a good place if random things are top cutting. I know people love diversity and they love out of left field and surprises, and you could consider both an Irwin Smith pick and an Elder Tagoro pick for these last two regionals to be pretty random, you know? But at the same time, they are picks that played off the known information. They took account of the Smiling Titans and these Togas and Godzillas and Rodans, and they built game plans that can not only beat a Godzilla with 34 health, but beat a Rodan with minus a bajillion speed on every attack. And you know, I totally get where people are coming from when it's a lot of the same cards in the deck, like the riskies all over Top Cut. That's where I'm more annoyed rather than like three Rodans in Top Cut, because I need to have some reliable information not only when deck building, but also to prove that we're not all crazy. Because if there was actually 16 random decks after we talked about some of these decks being as good as they are, wouldn't it just mean that every Universes player is stupid?
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, both St. Louis. It's funny how much they mirrored each other. Both St. Louis and Atlanta, like, were pretty predictable with their top cuts, and yet the character that ends up winning was the surprise one. The extremely good player who showed up with a surprise pick.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know. I'd rather see a counter, excuse me, I'd rather see a counter meta deck than a totally random one, right? Like you want to see
Yeah.
someone get rewarded for making intentional choices. Because I'll be honest, there's some random ass top cuts out there. There's some really random characters that have made a top cut at events that I don't know if they really make sense. I won't bring up any because someone might get offended that their pick was considered random by me. But there's definitely been some eyebrow raisers that people can't explain to me.
Yeah, I think I think a cool one of the other cool anti-meta ones was George bringing Mothra for
Yes.
the the built-in smiling Titan hate on Mothra, and then playing the goofy 13 diff that everybody called a meme card, and
Yeah.
playing it with a straight face with lots of protection. That was also an anti-meta pick. Ended up losing to Kevin though. Uh,
Yeah.
in top 8 pretty fast too. There's rumblings that Hanj is going to be the next Twisting Azure combined firepower deck.
Oh, adding one diffs or whatever?
No, the
Wait,
new
which one?
Hanj, the seven-hander, 21 health, gets to commit for +3 or -3 damage and build a card from your hand face down, and then you can blow up 2 foundations to ready Hanj.
That.
So you trigger Twisting Azure on face, and then you can just keep blowing up to readying Hanj and
Oh,
keep
and you get
building
a
your cards.
foundation.
It's almost just a different flavor of Irwin, but now you get the life symbol instead of order as
And
your
you get damage
secondary.
instead of speed. See, I think a big part of the
Yeah.
Irwin deck really was the speed. Like again, I think it's downplaying it to say that not only is it downplaying to say it only gives speed, but it's also downplaying how important the speed is when every other version of this deck gives tons of damage. There's Karasu
Yeah.
decks out there that give more damage than you could ever imagine, but they're never hitting a Rodan. They're relying on Jawjammer to hit a Rodan.
Yeah, that was the same thing with Ymir. It's like Ymir gives tons of damage, but Ymir really struggles breaking you know,
A real
Rodan's
wall,
wall.
yeah. Yeah, so I can see the vision with this Hanji. I'm excited to like fool around with this Hanji, but like a lot of things, I'd have to probably see it in person. I mean, the obvious answer is you got to figure out the card draw, right? But I can see the
Yeah.
vision, and it wouldn't surprise me because Twisting Azure Inferno is a card that has carried a symbol, you know, much in the same way
Yeah.
Back Alley Haymaker has uplifted all three of its symbols and was almost omnipresent in top cuts and its symbols. And ironically, it of course gets banned after like the first event where people didn't play it, you know. Twisting Azure sounds like that kind of card where we've seen fire decks do well with it, we've seen chaos decks do well with it, we've seen death decks do immensely well with it. And for a long time, it wasn't even really about the action. It was just my character gives 3 damage, right?
Yeah, now it's kind of morphed into the firepower really unlocked it. I was surprised that we've had 2 straight regionals won by a Twisting Azure firepower deck, and both of them survived. I fully expected one of them to
and
get hit.
and they play so differently, right? Like again,
Yeah.
like you can just hem and haw and go, Twisting Azure combined does it again, but they do it so differently. And that I'll be the first person to say hit one of those cards if they're able to go both tall and long. Like let's do it, let's hit it. But I do think it's important to point out that as far as I don't know, maybe I'm tilted. I don't know if you saw the Reddit thread. There was like a Reddit thread where someone was upset with the diversity in this game, and I'm glad I don't have a Reddit account to reply. But I was just like, man, that is such a weird take. Like, you might not like it, but to attack it for its diversity is just not correct. I feel.
Yeah, that feels like the I've played this game for a month. Why am I not winning?
Yeah,
Why?
that's you know, you might be onto something. That's something I talked about with Brobert too a lot, where I try not to take my own decks to locals. I did take a Mothra deck that was basically just George's deck to a local championship though, and I had a whole lot of fun with that. That was very funny. But normally I try to borrow their decks, and so that way if they lose to me, it's like they can see how their deck should be played, you know? And also it's like
Yeah.
not my fault for like just building a better deck. Um but at the same time, I don't want to like let people win, even though I know it's like really important that you let people win.
Yeah, I can't let someone win.
It's
I
so
cannot do it.
I just feel like it's obvious. Like if you can do it and they don't know, it's the best thing ever because it is important for people to win to stay interested with stuff. We talk about how winning shouldn't be everything and how you should be able to have fun while losing, but if you never win, if you never feel that success, man. I remember I had a friend who played One Piece, and he's not like super big card gamer, you know, fooled around at Yu-Gi-Oh locals when he was a teenager. Just didn't like get super heavy until One Piece came out, and he even like paid for coaching. And he like messaged me when he won his first local, and he was ecstatic. Now, granted, their locals are
Yeah.
like 6 rounds or something because they get way more people. It's like a whole regional for us. But I just remember thinking like it's a little weird to me to be so excited about winning just like a local. But then I remembered he just started playing this game and he's been playing for like 2 months. And after 8 weeks of showing up and like just getting a pack and a pat on the back, like it felt super good to finally, you know, get your picture taken with the playmat or whatever it was they were playing for, you know. I think it was like a bumped up event too. I don't think it was like a pure local. But point is getting your locals to win games is like part of your job as an ambassador to the game, but I don't think you should just straight up like let them win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a I've noticed that with poker nights. I'm sorry, this is the card game I played long before Universes, but with Texas Hold'em, like a beginner would continue coming to poker night whenever the first time they came, whether it was skill or just good luck. And most of the time, it's just for some reason when someone comes for the first time, they get dealt all the good stuff.
Beginner's
Everything goes
luck,
right. Like
baby.
if they end up getting like first or second place, they're going to become a regular. But the beginners who come and then they bust out early on, yeah, they don't come again. It's probably same with Universes. Yeah, you want to have a little bit of you need to have a little bit of early success to give you that belief and momentum to keep going, but Universes is also a hard game to have that early success. And I've been doing this like dance at locals where like it's extremely important to me as someone with only one locals to win every single event for championship points. So it's
Right.
extremely important to me to win everything. But I don't want to be that guy showing up with an S tier deck at locals. So for every local qualifier and local championship, almost every single one, I've been purposely bringing like a minus tier deck or something like, okay, I think I can still win if I play well, but also whoever I'm playing, even if they lose, should still have a good time,
Right.
has been my theory, but I don't know. I haven't been giving up wins.
I
I've
have.
been,
I've been legitimately just losing to people at locals. Um, I'm trying so hard not to try hard, you know? And
yeah.
I fell behind. And then we have like people like traveling from Arizona. And it feels like wrong as someone who's like been commentating all year to like try to spike them on points when I think one of them has a pretty good shot. I think I saw their name on the leaderboard recently. Like they have an outside shot of getting an invite to Worlds just trickled down to them or something, you know? So like at this
Well,
point,
then
I don't even want to. Huh?
I need you to beat them for
No, I don't
me.
want to. They traveled all the way to my to support my local. Like I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You know, but I could be way off base. I've tried not to get super invested because after I missed out on playing in the Vegas regional, I knew like it was just not gonna be there for me this year. Levi has been recently hitting me up about casting for Nats and Worlds. And like man, I really want to take the outside shot on playing at Nats and living the dream, but just like financially, like trying to plan this far ahead. Like I think I just told him lock me in for casting because I don't even know if I'm qualified for Nats. And people are telling me like the invites will pass down. And it's like when will I know? When will I know that I'm qualified for nationals if I don't have because right now if I go log into the games network, it says I have 4 points. That's not enough. And I don't know if it's going to update with more because I got fifth place at the local qualifier. Because, funny enough, I tied in the last round. Thought the other person was like 3-0 or 2-0 as well. They weren't. They were paired up. Everyone else was 1-1. And we rolled off, and I lost the roll, and I ended up fifth place at 2-1 instead of winning with a tie because I thought I
Ouch.
needed the win to win the event. And then the
Yeah.
person from Arizona ended up winning.
Well, yeah, this could get me on a whole rant of like the new organized play team appears to only care about 2025 and zero care about 2024 because we don't know who's qualified for Nats. We don't know if season 4 LQs and LCs are going to count for championship points race. Um, we
Which
don't
would be
really
even
know
crazier.
world's prizing for this year, or how seeding is going to work. What's the tournament going to be like? We know it's going to be like. Is it still going to be different formats, or is it all going to be standard? I feel like we know more about 2025 worlds than we do about 2024 worlds. Uh, it appears like the new OPT came in and they said, okay, um, this year's a mess. We're not even going to worry about it. Let's just start planning next year.
Yeah.
Uh, but like we're going into season 4 and like we don't know when the last event that rewards championship points is. It's
Right.
it's nuts.
I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to dox them. I don't know them personally. But I will say that it's probably easy to eliminate. But the person I'm talking about from Arizona, as of, was it August 8th, they were fourth in, uh, they were in the top five, I should say, in the North American points race.
Oh, they're in. They're in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm saying. Like it's at this point where like if I was in, I don't think they did too well in Atlanta, but they played in Atlanta, so they probably got like a point or two. there because I would imagine that they'd be like top 32, right? They're a good player.
Mhm.
And um, at this point, I feel like I would be robbing them, like if I bumped them out of the like sixth place for me to like qualify for Nats. Like that's such a, I don't know, it's such a weird place to be where I have to like fight over I have to fight over points with someone who is trying to qualify for Worlds and not even have to play at Nationals, just so I can play at Nationals to qualify for Worlds. Does that not
Hold on.
make sense to anyone else?
This is a big worry of mine, though, going into season 4. I am so worried about everybody saying, okay, guys, X player, if they win 3 local championships, they can get into Worlds. So what we're going to do is just gift them the win
Yeah.
on all 3 of these events. And then they're going to pass players like me who are like, clawing their way for a spot, and it's going to end up, I just know it, I can feel it in my gut, it's going to end up that in season 4 everybody's just, okay, you are the person designated to win today. And so
Yeah. Who's got the realest shot, right? Like who in your
mhm,
one who's like the one person in your play group who didn't qualify through a regional and who is the most serious about this? Because that's kind of how last year's Nats qualifiers were. They passed down so much that by the end of the season, people were just going, all right, who needs an invite? And if your play group was
yeah,
big enough, you got punished because there was like 8 people, I think, in Florida who wanted to go to nationals but couldn't go to nationals because there's just too many players in Florida. I don't know if that was this year or last year, but there's like a real issue where your bigger play groups who might have more than 2 or 3 invested traveling players or who would be, but they
yeah,
can't get enough invites for the whole group. So they kind of miss out. Whereas a smaller play group, not only is it less likely that you have multiple people who want to travel, so they can just, designate you are the one, but they don't have to fight over as many if there's like a certain minimum amount that get passed out. So I've not, I've really not liked the qualifying for Nats thing. Um, I get that like funneling people into one big community event is good, and I don't want to lose that. If we turn Worlds into that, it's fine, but I don't know if Worlds is gonna be like that next year. You know what I mean? It's seeming like Worlds day one is nationals, and then day 2 and 3 are just Worlds, and they're just trying to get everyone in one place. They're trying to make you pay for the whole weekend, so it's like, well, you might as well
yeah,
play side events, right?
yeah. And I won't name the store or name the players, but I will say I was looking at some local championship data, or a team member found this local championship data. There was a play group that had a local championship start at a store at like 10 a.m. And then they also had a local championship start at a different store close by at like noon that day. And somehow they had the same winner for both of those events. And both events were like 4 rounds. So I don't know how they played a 4 6 round
Four and a
event
half
and then
hours
got
of
to the other
universes
place.
minimum.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe they adjusted the times and the time just wasn't adjusted in the UGN, but a little suspicious to have 2 local championships within 2 hours of each other, similar players, the same winner. The winner just happens to be needing points to get to Worlds. But who knows? I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not challenging the results of the leaderboard here.
maybe
Um,
maybe they really are just that close. Maybe the stores are that close. Maybe
and
it's a
maybe
small
the store
town.
said, okay, in order to get players, we'll take our starting time from 12 to 4.
That's the
So that players can come.
that's the crazy part to me is who's starting a local championship at 10 a.m. Who's doing that? All my
Yeah,
local championships are at like 7 p.m. We start later than everyone else. We have to wait for the popular card games to be done with the tables.
yeah.
Our we're at a new store in town square, but like the last store we had, it was getting so popular with other games, we literally had to play in the storage room, which is like a separate building. They would like take us outside to a secondary building that just had like boxes and boxes of like Pokemon commons and Magic lands, and like it smells like cardboard. I don't know if you've ever been in the back part of a card shop, but it has like a distinct cardboard smell. Like we were playing in there, like, and it's like weirdly silent, like it's such a weird experience. So
That's
like
how you know that if you go to a place and there's a group playing so dedicated to their game, they're playing in the storage room.
yeah.
You gotta join that group. That's a dedicated that's a dedicated group.
David, are you a Melty Blood player? Have you ever played Melty Blood before?
I've never heard of that.
It's a game that got really infamous because people would hold tournaments in a bathroom.
That's
You would
melty
see people
blood.
with a laptop set up in the middle of a park, and they would unplug the soda machine and plug in the laptop to play Melty Blood tournament. That's dedication. They would get the park rangers, and like police would get called because someone would watch them unplug a soda machine.
I'll tell you what, my store did have a big game. I think you were playing this game earlier. It's a lesser known game. It's like the football miniature game. What's that called?
It's called Blood Bowl. I love that game.
Blood Bowl. We had, let's see, this was about a month ago. Came for a Universes event. There were about 20 players playing Blood Bowl. It was taking up the whole store. I don't know if we had some, I
Sounds
guess
like
we
a
had some big,
regional.
yeah. This must have been some big regional events, but it
You
was
guys,
making me think maybe I need to get into this.
I, you know, I. It's tough because Blood Bowl's gone through a bunch of iterations. Not to get totally off the universe's subject, but I
Yeah.
think Blood Bowl is one of the most fun games if you are not concerned about playing optimal. People get very upset at me because I always play for like literally the high roll, like over like star, like difficult plays. And the thing is it's a game where you roll a six-sided die and you generally fail on a one and you succeed on a two. And it's like those are such good odds. Like why would I not like why would I not take those odds? And the whole game is about like rolling until you fail, similar to universes, which is why I think which is why I think I like it so much. And like people will just get so fucking mad at you because you're choosing to roll dice instead of taking like the safer option and playing slower. And I think the game is mega mega fun, but just don't let anyone tell you how to play it. Like play it however you feel like.
All right. All
Once
right. I'll
once you
just keep
start
rolling.
once you start getting good at the game and you start playing optimally, it does become frustrating because at that point the strategies are so good. It is just who rolls dice better, and that's never fun. But if you just play with like all the goofy shit that no one does, like for example, you can get players that mutate and they grow like extra limbs and shit, and like there's two or three that you always take because they're the good ones. Play with the other mutations. Grow a second head, have a tail on your character. It's way more fun.
All right. I'll give it a shot. I did want to go over there and try it out.
I Blood Bowl is also one of the few games I've found where, unlike Warhammer, people are more willing to lend out pieces to get you to play the game. So similar to Universes, it's smaller than Warhammer, probably bigger than Universes still, but every time I've met a group of Blood Bowl players, they have always been more than willing to do whatever they can to get people to just sit down and play the game. I even
Yeah.
I played a small league like 5 or 6 years ago. The only time I've played like in person as an adult, and I won a team because the guy was like he literally rented the team out to all eight of the players, and he owns like every team painted, and he gave away the team that I won with to try to get more people invested. So Blood Bowl is very similar in like the universe is like come play our game, whereas Warhammer is a little more like you kind of have to know people, I think, to play.
Yeah, in our local group of universes, we have like I would say about 16 of us. and there's about 4 or 5 of us that actually buy a serious amount of product,
Yeah.
and then we basically supply everybody else with the ultra rares and the secret rares that they need. Like they'll bring the bulk of their deck, but everybody, the
Yeah.
people who buy tons of product come and supply everybody basically.
So I got to the point where instead of bringing the commons and uncommons, I just started asking to borrow those too, because it was easier for me to borrow 60 cards than it was to borrow like 20 rares and have to like give them back and sort it out, you know? So now I'm
Yeah.
like, hey man, can I just borrow the whole deck? And they'll just give you back the whole deck. So my locals are super cool. They're very cool about that. They own like 4 play sets of every card and are like super invested, you know? And
Yeah.
so I'm just like, hey, you guys got like 4 whirling slashes, right? Yeah. You want pearls or obsidians, you know?
Yeah, I have a local who owns he owns 8 chrome Kuwabaras.
Jesus.
So it's
Did
like
he pull those or he bought them?
he bought like half of them, and then he opened a couple. He said he
Bro,
just kept getting them at good prices.
good prices. I can't imagine. A good price for a Kuwabara Chrome is like $20. I can't go any higher.
Yeah, if you look at if you were in Atlanta, you look at the chrome rares that Rochester has. They also own like 5 Kuwabara chromes,
That's wild.
and they still have their Todoroki. Anyway, I like seeing Rochester's rare cards and just seeing like, hey, I saw that card at the last event, and the last event, and the last event, and the last event. I don't think this one is ever gonna sell.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough, man. I get down a lot because I'll have a rare card or an expensive one and I can't find a buyer. And then I'll have someone like start playing the game. And just last night, I was telling you about the decoy duplicates with the player, right? He's like, I just don't own any, and I didn't really see a place to buy them at like a good price or whatever. And then he was also talking about how like he would love to play a walk the dog deck, but he's not going to pay for him. So like he's like the game is like simultaneously, and I feel this way, I guess, not him. I said that in a weird way, but like the game is like in this weird simultaneous place where I can open an expensive card, feel like it's not worth anything because no one's buying it, but then newer players who want to get into the game go online and want to buy these cards, but they're too expensive. So like it's not worth anything to me, but I can't, like all I can do
Yeah.
is list this card on TCG Player and let the price drop, and almost certainly some other player is gonna hawk that card, who already has a playset because it's dropping in price, rather than it going to like that new player who checked TCG Player once already and it was out and they're never checking it.
Yeah, I did have that urge today. Somebody said, "Why is Battle Ore released down to like $16?" It's like
No one's
maybe I should
buying
go
it.
buy some. Maybe I should go buy some Battle Auras. Uh,
Yeah,
even though
I watched like the second most expensive card in Star Wars, right? The second set for Star Wars. I pulled a crate dragon and it was like $34 when I pulled it. And in the week of me negotiating like a bulk trade with someone else, it dropped from like 34 to $17, literally in half. Or it was 19 or whatever in like a week. And the person was like, "Hey man, I'm actually going to back out and I'm saving money for something else," and like I couldn't even find a buyer for that. And in that whole time, like all the value that I pulled from my Star Wars set 2 boxes had like completely evaporated in front of my eyes on TCG Player because there's so many listed, none of them are selling, and the price is just tanking,
huh,
you know?
interesting. I did have someone reach out just today actually and say, "You want to give away a contender vial seizing?" And I said, "Yeah, but I don't want to buy a contender vial seizing." And they said, "That's fine. Nobody wants to buy mine."
Yeah, it's rough. I've seen a couple of things go like that. um I think someone was doing raffles at one point, and I thought, hey, that's actually like a pretty good idea if people are actually buying the tickets to the raffles. But I haven't seen one of those in a while, so either Facebook like shut it down, but like, $5 for a raffle ticket to buy it to get a Chrome or something, and uh, you have like 100 tickets, you get $500 for your Chrome. Someone has a chance to get a Chrome for $5. Probably
Yeah.
realistically like 20 or 30, but like something like that would be cool. But it's kind of sad when you have to raffle off your card's like highest rarity. It doesn't really feel good. But I thought, hey, that's a way that people might actually try to engage and like move a high rarity card.
Yeah, it worked out for me and my Beast Titan.
Yeah.
Worked out for
You did a giveaway or did you do an event? I thought that was part of an event.
Yeah, I did a contest of deck building contest, and then the winner got the Chrome. But in order to get into the deck building contest, you had to sign up as a member at $5 a month. And so, I had like
That's what it
20
was.
I had like 20 something signups. So it was like, well, hey, it's as if I sold the Beast Titan for $100. And then maybe some people will stay members.
Minus
And
Patreon's cut or coffee, buying
yeah,
the
yeah.
coffee.
And maybe this works out. But like that's not the because
Doesn't
it
feel
would have felt
great.
bad just giving away the Beast Titan, but it's like, hey, I got like 1/3 of what I would have sold it for.
Man, see, I can't even do that. I have such an issue with trying to monetize anything, much less like my content. Like my Patreon is barren because every time I think about doing like something that's like Patreon exclusive, it just feels wrong. It feels like my content is not like good enough to exclusify it. I know.
Well, and then if you do something exclusive, by the time it hits the public, it's too late
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's
for the
a lot of people do like an exclusive like 1 week ahead, and I hate that so much because like I can't imagine anything that any content creator says is so important. I have to hear it before someone else. Like I love
yeah.
game nights. Game nights is the biggest Commander Magic show, and they get like celebrity guests. They're huge. They're absolutely massive, and they do really good quality edits and like do an amazing show. I would never in my fucking life pay them $20 to watch the episode a week early. Like I know that there's other benefits, but like I don't know when the like week early tier even actually starts. But like
Mm.
I'm not paying you $5 to watch a YouTube video early. Like I'm sorry, it's not. If it was exclusive forever, maybe I could understand that. But then how do you grow your audience, right? If your main show
Yeah.
is exclusive.
Then you have to be making so much content, it's crazy.
Yeah, you'd have to make content that advertises this content, and like Dropout did that pretty successfully. The Remnants of College Humor was like one of the biggest YouTube shows or YouTube channels. Like literally has some of the first 100 million views videos back from like 2008 and stuff. And they have like a subscription service, and they have like 5 free episodes. They have like one free episode of everything and like some shorts content, and then you're supposed to get the subscription. And like I could see something like that, but that is like fully TV produced shows, like game shows and improv comedy shows. But something for like a YouTube hour long, I'm playing games with my friends style content. I don't know, it feels so weird for me. But I have thought about like if I were to do a giveaway or something, if it's wrong to be like, hey, you got to be a $5 Patreon member just so I can do the raffle on my Discord. There's content creators that make you pay $5 to join their Discord. Like, come on, man, how bad can
Oh,
it be?
what a good idea. I'm just kidding.
Oh my god, dude, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
now it's gonna be $2 if you want your tournament player role. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. And I guess, I mean, if you really got that many people pouring in and you're trying to like prevent trolls or whatever, like you probably will fend off a lot of trolls at just making them pay you $5 to troll you. But I don't know. it's stuff like that where I'd have to be like way bigger to even consider uh trying to do stuff like that.
Mm.
I do want to change gears here because we did get a little off topic. I do want to cover this with you really, really quick before we get too deep into this double header episode. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about trying out retro because I know you played. I think it was Todoroki, right, at the Atlanta
Mm.
retro event. You played in a couple of retro events now, and if 2025 is going to be the year of retro, the one of the biggest things we have to tackle is how do we get players who started with MHA interested in retro, and how do we get them to have fun? Because I've handed people a lot of deck lists. I've told people how the deck list works, but I haven't really been able to like, go through the motions with them and provide them like sample games. And for me who lived through it, it's still a daunting task to build a retro deck and try to even imagine that the deck I'm building is adequately prepared for anything that's going to come my way. So when you look at these retro events and things like this, tell me like what's your preparation like? What's it like when you're thinking about it before you even get to the event?
Yeah, so I've done 3 retro events. Um, and first off, I'll just let this be known before I talk about my preparation. Um, to me, the IPs in retro are not interesting at all. Um, and
Soul Calibur
and
hater,
this
I
is
see
going to
it.
be a hot topic in retro. I think the retro cards are ugly. So I know you like them better than the cards today, but to me, I find them very off-putting. So
Hey,
with
I
that
will
in mind,
really quick. I will say once they got to once we got to like Yu Yu Hakusho, it finally started to come around. I think the vision and like changing the text box and stuff has come a long, long way. But you're right. Throughout the MHA years, those first couple years, I was like, we changed the outline for this, you know?
yeah, I think the secret rares revealed today are some awesome looking cards.
Yeah.
Um, so those are 2 big kind of barriers to me playing retro. But I went to the World Championship a couple years ago when I wasn't one of the 32 participating, the $250,000 one, first one for my hero.
The good one.
Um, and I knew I was going to be there for the whole weekend and that there was a retro event. So there was like a common grounds event, a retro event, and I wanted a deck for every single event. I was going to play every side event. And so one of my locals gave me a retro deck. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Um, of the character. But before the event, what I did is I just read every card and I got a general idea for what my deck is doing.
Right.
Um, and then for nationals last year, I played in the retro event, and then in Atlanta, I played in the retro event. And for both of those, I basically just played Todoroki, and I didn't. For the nationals event, I didn't bother putting any retro cards in other than Bang because they said that they unbanned Bang and it seemed really good. And I was like, all right, I'll put 3 copies of this in my deck. And then for this
Reasonably
retro
priced.
event in Atlanta, I did a stream where I opened up some retro boxes that Rochester sent me. And I was just pulling out water cards that I thought would be good in Todoroki. And I ended up putting like 12 cards in my Todoroki deck. So my preparation for each was not that much because if I'm being honest, for each of the 3 events, I didn't go in that excited for the event.
Okay.
um Me personally, but I wanted to experience retro. And every single retro event, that all 3 of those events, after the event I ended up being super happy that I played in it because I had way more fun than I expected to have in each of them. And in each of the 3 I went 2-1. 2 wins, 1 loss. So not only did I have way more fun than I expected, but I ended up having more success than I expected at each of them because it still is universes.
Right.
The biggest daunting part is just not knowing what all the cards do. So what I've gotten in the habit of doing is while my opponent's doing their build, I just take every one of their cards and I read them. I
Right.
just I speed read them. Like I just like, okay, I have 15 seconds to learn the basics of this card and then I put it back and then I decide that I'm never going to ask my rival for
Yeah,
me to read that card again.
a
I'm gonna
lot
speed read it once.
a lot of them you can equate to a current card too. You know, like there's a
Mhm.
1/5 that commits for -3 speed. It's pretty simple effect. You're like, okay, this is the speed hate one. If you've got a card that cancels drawing a card, you can just be like, okay, well this is can't escape me, but it flips instead of destroys, right? Like there's a lot of one for
Yeah.
one uh effects, I guess you could say. I think that the I think that's one of the biggest issues that people think that they're gonna have, and it's not a big deal. One of my favorite stories is Shane Duckworth had like taken a break from the game, came back at like a major event, and didn't know what any of the cards did. Just like asked someone like, "Hey, what's the best deck?" You know. And the whole time he's playing at this event, he's reading every single card his opponent plays. He's just reading every card for the first time almost. You know, probably for like the second or third, but he's reading every single card as it gets played, and he ends up like I think he either won that event or got like top two. And so I'm pretty sure he won that event, and it's just very funny that there's so many times like an old head will come back and they know the basics of the game and they'll do super good at a tournament and sometimes win them, and you'll ask them like what was it like afterwards, and like I don't know what half their cards did. I just stunned them out. I just played
Yeah.
fast enough attacks and I said whatever, like. So it I think it's a little misrepresentative to think that you have to know what any of the cards in retro do, because when your opponent plays them, you'll get to read them, and if they have a hand trap that you knew about, there's so many cards and so many different hand traps that like I don't even know what to expect people to play. We just talked about how
Mhm.
in Atlanta for standard, I was so surprised that people weren't playing Genkais and barrier shields, and I'm sure if I played retro, there's going to be people who don't play Revoke, even though I'm going to expect Revoke on every deck that can play it, because that's just how it was back a long time ago. That doesn't mean how it's going to be like that now. And on top of that, there's only so much you can really do to play around cards like that. You know what I mean? Like, there's especially a card like Revoke and not like Henkai's Guidance. You're just going to have to eat it, and it's just going to happen to you, and it's just not the end of the world. You're not gonna get to play around it.
Yeah, and I was surprised too by like if you know how to play universes, you can pick up on things very quickly. Like you can say, okay, these are the defensive cards in their
Right.
stage, these are the offensive cards. All right, I've seen 3 foundations now that all have to deal with having multiple characters in stage. I'm getting an idea for what this deck wants to do. It's gonna want to build all these characters and or like I played a Shiva in Atlanta and like it was lots of cards that cared about my card pool,
Yeah.
like it gets +1 damage and +1 speed for every card in my card pool or things like it was like, okay, all of this, the whole deck is speaking a language here. Like,
Right.
there's commonalities among these cards, and then it's like, okay, this defensive card seems crazy. I'm gonna need to play around that card. But you can pick up on these things if you're good at universes. You don't have to know retro cards, I think, to kind of understand what to do. Your intuition will probably be correct still.
Yeah, and again, for the most part, uh when I was new to universes, the character that I saw success with the first was a character that clogs the card pool on every attack, similar to Karama, and then has one big move that gets bonus damage for every card in the card pool. And it's like a 2 damage move, but it gets 2 damage. It's a tongue whip move, but it starts at 2 damage, and it gets two for every card. And I built the deck on the life symbol, and I posted it on a forum before I even played it, I'm pretty sure. And everyone was like, why are you choosing the life symbol? The water symbol has all the same better kicks and it clogs the card pool, but the damage bonus better. And do you know what my response was, David?
What?
I'm not trying to deal damage. I'm trying to use the character's form ability to gain infinite maximum health. I was fixated on form. First form, gain 1 health. Then, if you're at maximum health, increase your maximum vitality by 1. That's
That
what.
the retro Kamui 2.
Yeah, 7-hander starts at 19 health, I think, and you have to. And I think Kamui, you get to increase it at the same time. This character was like you if you're at like 18 out of 19, your maximum increases, but you stay at 19, so you don't even get the bonus health yet. And I played every life symbol gain life card. I played every kick that like made sense for the character. And what ended up happening was if I checked enough fives and I just played 4 attacks, my opponent rolled over and died. And I didn't have to care about what's in their stage. I didn't have to care about breakers or getting blocked, because every card they added to their card pool to block just meant more sweet, sweet damage on the back end for Tornado Kick. And it's the first time I ever beat the aforementioned Shane Duckworth, who was, like working for the company at the time and like the former champion, like teaching all the new players. And he was like, I could tell he was kind of like not letting me win, like he was kind of frustrated too that this was such a one-sided thing. And it's because card pool stuffing back then, just like now, is very uninteractable, and you had to be playing a really niche sideboard card that did exist, but you had to be playing a niche sideboard card on exactly the water symbol, or a water symbol character, to like fight against it. And if you don't expect it, like you get run over, right? So all this is to say that with no understanding of the format, it was still not difficult to build a deck that does its own thing, that is kind of self-contained. And I had some generic like water defensive staples. I had the card that cancels draw abilities, and I had the card that lets me draw an additional card every turn. There's like a form commit draw, and so I just could like out resource people in the early game, right? And I just did my own thing. And the second character that I saw success with had first form, flip 1 rival foundation. So all I had to do was read all their cards and go, this is the best one. I don't have to worry about it. Whatever card I don't want to read, I just flip it. And it made the game so much easier. So if you don't want to learn all these retro cards, you can just play foundation answers. You can just play cards that blank things, that cancel things. And if you build a deck that cancels everything your rival does, you don't have to learn what it does. You just cancel it.
Yeah, I think that was a big deal in my last 2 retro events. Was playing Todoroki 1 gives me a cancel on face. Todoroki 1 gets to cancel and enhance on a rival um, once a turn. And I found that just canceling 1 enhance on a rival retro deck, like, can sometimes just win me the game, or can, disrupt them enough to where it's okay. Like for example, when I played against the Shiva, they were playing this card that said draw 4 cards. It was
Yeah.
like draw
Yeah.
8 minus X. X is your hand size cards. And it was like just canceling the draw 4 was a big deal.
Yeah.
And kind
Airground
of,
smash.
yeah, kind of evened me out. Or like Rose Whiplash was one that like I faced a lot at nationals. It was something like it gets +4/+4, and just
Yep.
canceling that sometimes um, helped me out. But that having Todoroki kind of helped me. I think even the playing field of, okay, I can stop your deck somewhat
Yeah.
on face.
Yeah.
But the other thing is like I really enjoyed learning these characters and the different strategies. Like in Atlanta, I played against Inferno, Shiva, and Dr. Wily. And each one was very, very different. And just learning about them was neat. At Nationals, I played against a lot of reversal decks. I played against a Stone Man. I
Stone Man
at
is rough.
yeah, that match I did not like so much. And then at the Worlds event, I played against a Scorpion, the guy that goes into desperation or
Yeah.
something.
I hate
Yeah,
that character.
yeah,
That
and I
character
played
was
against
the
the
bane of my
Spike.
existence.
Yeah, there was one match where I played against the Spike and I read his Spike character. It's like the seven-hander one, and I thought this character doesn't seem that good. And then he beat me with him.
Yeah. Hey, to
Like
be fair,
it's just it's fun seeing these designs.
yeah, to be fair, when that spike debuted, a lot of people like didn't think he was very good, outside of the fact that he was 7 hand size with 24 health and having like a little bit of damage reduction on face, to be like 25, 26. And that stat line alone was definitely a big deal, but the fact that his stats are like +2 or -2 speed was kind of a thing, right? Like that's a lot bigger deal now than people give it credit for, and it was a bigger deal back then than people give it credit for. Um,
Yeah.
he had like a great symbol spread for playing like off symbol actions. So like no matter what symbol you played the deck on, you probably had Bang in there, you probably had Revoke in there, you probably had Taguro Brothers in there. And then on top of all of that, they've now made way better cards for flipping your own stage. So like flipping your own stage has 2 or 3 like big massive payoff cards, and they like want you to do that. They want that strategy to be good. So I could definitely see a retro spike one deck just being like an insufferable wall of like some of the 3 best defensive symbols ever. And then once it's flipped its whole stage to play defense, they just play like a swimming bird and then give it speed equal to your face down.
And now you can mix new game mechanics with the old game mechanics. Like for example, this Spike, this flip one foundation cost. Now you can flip your outwit cards. You can
Oh.
unflip your outwit cards and flip them back and start doing things like that. I know my brother is going to get into retro too this year, and he's just excited to play Toga 3. He's like, "Oh, getting +3 +2 on your first attack as a reversal seems really fun."
That
And now I
is
can force them to commit their foundations on a reversal. Um, so he's been building theory crafting a Toga 3 retro deck. For me, my plan is to stick to Todoroki. I'm gonna slowly amass water cards for him. Like I got this DLC kit at my locals this last week. It says, and I got this card that says it's water. Um, Search for salvation. It says response remove after your opponent plays an attack against Flash and is unblockable. So it's like free cheerleader, but you're gonna take some damage now. And it seemed like, yeah, this could fit in my Todoroki deck. I could put one or two of these in. Um,
David, you gotta find the real cheerleader.
what's that one?
It's called High Seas Adventure. Have you seen
High
that
Seas
card?
Adventure. No, I'm looking it up on Ultra now.
It's a 3/4. It's just flash this attack.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Is this legal in retro?
Yeah, it's from World of Indines, which was a
Oh,
collection of turbo decks that featured 2 characters per deck and like a 40 card deck that came with 20 random rares. And I believe High Seas Adventure was one of the rares. So good luck finding it. I'm sure Sean O'Brien has some. But that is by far one of the best retro cards, in my opinion. It dominated a whole format. It elevated the symbols it's on to being, you know, purely like defensive powerhouses. It was so
yeah.
difficult to kill through a High Seas Adventure. And I don't think it's unique. You're looking at it, not me. I can't remember if it's
No, it's not unique.
yeah.
Yeah, that just seems flat out better than this. This is like budget
Well,
version.
that one has the cute stun effect where if they only have face downs, they clog their pool. So like you
Yeah.
run both. Realistically, you run like a spread of both. But
And
High
it's a
Seas
too high
Adventure,
block. This one's no block.
yeah, High Seas Adventure also doesn't have a block. So I'm not saying like jam 4 of it, but I do think you'd be interested in that one. um,
Yeah, that seems my style. Because that's effectively when you give something flash, you're canceling the enhances.
right.
Um,
I've also sent a lot of flash attacks on my own to win games. If people have like a
yeah.
powerful enhance or something like that, I've definitely flashed my own attack. Very frustrating for throws. Back in the day, almost all throw hate was an enhance or like one specific card on 3 symbols. And so if you had a flash throw, you were doing a lot of work for a small period of time. there's so many cool things
Mm.
about retro, and I hope that it takes off in a casual environment because I really do think that having competitive events for retro is in a very, very rough spot right now. And I think that it's not a great way to introduce people to it. You know, having like a high stakes tournament, I don't think is like really the way to go because people have said we'll start having regionals with our retro and start having like, you know, events that matter
Yeah.
for it. And I think if you have a bunch of events that have like a really nice prize that people care a lot about, they're probably not going to have as much fun when they have a bad read on a format that's 8,000 cards or whatever. Because that's where you do get to the place where you wish that you knew what was happening. Wish that there was a meta game, you know?
Okay,
Trying,
so help me out here because I want to do a couple retro events next year,
okay.
webcam events. And I know number one that retro webcam events are going to be hard if the cards are difficult to get. Um, but I'm going to do them anyway. Uh,
Fair enough.
and I know webcam also is hard for new players because in all the retro events I played in, while they're building, I'm like grabbing their cards and reading them. And
Correct.
I can't do that. I can't do that on webcam. So if you were going to make a webcam event for retro, what are the things that you would do to make new players play?
I'm always a big fan of great participation prizes. I always feel like one of the best ways to do things, and one of the reasons I don't run tournaments, is I always want to give something to everybody. I hate top ended tournaments. I hate top heavy prizing. Top heavy prizing serves only for marketability. It really doesn't serve any other purpose. And it's a great way to have players walking away feeling like they actually had nothing, like they didn't enjoy their experience, and so they didn't get anything. So I think having
Mm.
like a doorbuster prize is always my first thought. My first thought is when you pay for a ticket, what are you getting before you even play in the event, right? What promo are you getting? What package are you getting? You know. So I think that that's like I don't know what would work for, you know, prizes you guys ship out all over. And I assume that people from the UK and Oceania will get to play in these too if they want. So think about international shipping, kind of an issue. So I don't know
Yeah.
what the pricing would be, but I would say try to have a participation prize. So that way everybody who signs up gets something. I think as much as I love the webcam championship, I think that's the only thing missing is just getting something for signing up. And I fully understand that like shipping a single promo pack, like I used to get plus ultra packs from doing the webcam Wednesdays and like the unfun Fridays. Doing all that is probably more hassle than it's worth. But finding something for everybody is definitely gonna help out. The
Would
other
say like, hey, top maybe like not even having top cuts or something and just saying top 25% gets something.
maybe doing like not a top cuts could definitely work out where you're just doing like maybe an extra round or two of Swiss and instead you just get like a clean cut where the top 8 get all the same prize. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, not like a first place record matters more, you know. I also think that this is probably a controversial or a bad take, but I'm interested to see how it goes. Open deck lists for a retro webcam event. If I have to type out every single card into UVS Ultra to figure out what you're playing, especially, you know, I don't know exactly how the rules. I was going to ask you about unifying the deck building rules because I think that's where we're headed. I think that's what Sean O'Brien's doing with the Wednesday
Mhm.
webcam stuff is, you know, basically bringing in MHA's rule set for everything except maybe character stacking. But so the if you gave everyone like their opponent's deck list, and I can just look at their deck list on Ultra and I say, "Hey man, what did you just play?" And you can tell me the name and I can just read it. That might speed things up, but it also does take away from someone like the surprise element. And you know, retro is such a wide open format that you really can get people with like some kind of gotcha combo. So I don't like that answer, But as far as making it so that people can play the game with less frustration, that might be the way to go.
Yeah, I would love that. If I was playing against somebody and I could just pull up their list and then it's like, okay, I get what's happening here.
Right, and if we're willing to do that for top cuts and standard, I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world. Um, you know what I mean? I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world to bring it in for Swiss for this, you know? Especially if you are
Yeah.
not doing a top cut anyways. If you were just gonna like cut to the top 8 records and only play 5 rounds or something anyways, you could kind of treat the whole event like it's a top cut at that point. So that's my only real solution for making things like accessible, because there's so many cards I would be sitting here going, okay, you're playing which card? It's Yatagarasu Shiki 123. Was it Kin 1218 Shiki Yatagarasu? You want to spell that out in UVS Ultra right now?
Yeah.
You know, I can't even remember the full name of it. I just know that the number in it is 1218, and everyone calls it Yatagarasu because that's the word in all caps on it.
Yeah, or I saw a card got revealed today and Kevin said Susie's back and it was like Susie, and then somebody posted the retro card of it and the name was very complicated. It was not Susie. Yeah. Susie
uh,
was clearly just the
Susie.
abbreviation easy one, but it was like it gets -2 difficulty for every attack in your card pool was the attack revealed today.
Susie. That's Homura Togi. The one that
Yeah,
gets
it was
minus.
some no, it was like a 10 difficulty retro attack that got -1 difficulty for every attack in your card pool.
Yeah, that's Ura. That's Ura some number. I don't remember the number on this one. Ura some number Shiki Homura Togi. I used to play Iori in King of Fighters, so I know most of the. I
Let me
don't
go
remember
find.
the numbers.
No, it was okay, here it is. I got it pulled up. Ku, Kasumi Suzaku.
Kasumi Suzaku?
Yeah, 10 diff, 4 high 10.
Oh, this is the older one. Okay, Homura Togi
Okay.
is the reprint of Kasumi Suzaku.
Okay, so we're going
You're right. This one's
years
a
and years
10
back.
difficulty, not a 7 difficulty. You're right.
Yeah, this is 2007. Maybe this is Legacy. Is 2007 Legacy or
Yeah, that's
Retro?
Legacy. Which that's another issue
Okay.
with retro where like I think it's very confusing if you come from Magic and someone says, "Hey, this is our retro format." It's kind of like our Legacy. It's where you play with all the old cards. And then it's not where you play with all the old cards. It's where you play with most of the old cards. And there's like another 6 years or 4 years of old cards that you can't play with.
Yeah, that is confusing to me as a new player to Retro. Is like, when does Retro start? And the best thing for me is just that you can click Retro on UVS Ultra, and it only
Yeah.
shows you the retro cards.
We
Um,
love retro. Notice how Legacy doesn't have a button.
yeah, what I want on UVS Ultra is I want a button where I can say I don't want I don't want to see the banned cards. I want like a banned button where
Well,
I can search the banned cards in Retro, because Retro has like a very long ban list, and I don't want to. There was somebody in Atlanta who got a game loss because they played a card and then someone went, "That card's banned."
so if you checkmark retro on UVS Ultra, it should not include banned cards in retro. Like if you go to retro and you
Oh,
click on it
nice.
and you type in Twisting Azure Inferno, it doesn't show up because it's banned. UVS Ultra never shows you cards that are banned in that form.
Oh,
The
carry
pro-
on. Yeah.
Now the problem is that that ban list changes kind of haphazardly at totally random times, and oftentimes like shortly before an event. So you
Yeah.
know, it's not a perfect solution, but UVS Ultra does do a pretty good job of staying on top of it.
Yeah, I didn't realize it did that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
Okay,
do.
that makes me feel better because I was like, I don't want to consult the ban list for every single card that I get because I don't know these cards.
And there is, like you said, there's a fair bit of them. There's quite a few. If you want to play with a smaller ban list, there is a TTS event coming up. I don't know if I'm super stoked to play in it personally. They did unban my favorite character, but my favorite character wants to see turn 20, and I'm really not sure if it can survive the completely unrestricted kind of a ban list they're going for. So, they did unban my full combo, but that was a combo that worked in a much more restrictive retro, because at the time it was like, so the retro series was like 6 tournaments, right? And every tournament they were like looking to ban things that overperformed, things that were too good, things that caused problems, and it was basically just every deck that won got banned, something banned from it. And every now and then there'd be a different top cuts deck that's like, okay, hold on, that didn't win, but this is definitely not okay. Some things shockingly survived, some things got unbanned, but by the end of the retro series, there was enough like disgusting things banned that decks were playing like a very fair version of the game. There was a lot of nice back and forth in retro, but it was very similar to just standard at the time. I don't think it was vastly different. In fact, the retro king, Jacob Monsieur from Final Round Games, played a straight up standard list and won the retro mega event, like the big cap off retro championship. He won with a standard deck at the time. So, it's kind of a weird spot to be where my favorite deck was really good at this very fair version of the game, but yet it had like 4 cards banned out of it for being blatantly unfair. And now that we're going back to stuff that's blatantly unfair, I don't think my unfair shit can hang.
Yeah, I saw that event. I was thinking about participating in it. It's TTS, so I could build, but and TTS is nice because I can just hover over my opponent's cards and read them while
It's
they're playing them.
as far as retro goes, it's definitely my preferred way to play it. I don't own like any retro cards of significance. I certainly couldn't build a deck yet. Soon, at the end of this month, I am going to be opening a bunch of retro boxes that Sean O'Brien sent me, and I do plan to start playing in the Retro Wednesday webcam weeklies with those cards. But I wish that there was just like some nice middle ground, because can't really do official events on TTS, and I get it. And I do think that people should be interested in buying and collecting these cards. I know you don't think that they're very pretty, and I do think a lot of the art is bad, but I can't, fault the old designs because they got clean text boxes, man. I can read the cards. I don't know what else you need from a card. I know card gamers hate reading text, but I can read the old cards better than I can read new cards, and that's what I care about.
Yeah, I mean, I've come around on them a little bit to where they look different. It looks like when I'm holding these cards, it looks like I'm holding a piece of history, like a like a piece of
What's even
universe's
that different? It's just
history.
where they put the symbols, man.
Yeah, but I mean, there's just so many.
New players are
Yeah,
gonna feel that way about MHA cards.
yeah,
You know,
that's
new
true.
players, new players are gonna come in and they're gonna be like, "Wow, look at those ugly symbols from these
I have to
old
be
cards."
honest. I have to be honest. One of the things that annoys me every time reveal season comes around is everybody who's been playing the game for longer than me calling out when they've reprinted a card that looks like an old card. And they're like, "Oh, this is back." It
Susie's
just makes like
back.
I want to experience reveal season together. I don't want to feel like I'm behind. Um, and then today they basically released a new version of Harden Jab,
Hell
and
yeah.
it's like, oh, Harden Jab's back. But now I'm gonna start sounding like that to the
Yeah, you're that guy now. Congratulations. I saw someone post. I forget what it was, but it was like a snarky comment that's like, "We're harkening back to the boomer days of MHA1." Like, it didn't take long, did it? Oh
Yeah, we
man,
went from MHA set one still dominating to it's old real fast.
it's certainly been power creeped. I don't think a 4 damage hardened jab is very playable.
No, no. Yeah, it's also a mid block instead of a one high block.
Yeah.
Uh, Probably, and it's an ultra rare instead of a common.
That's the best part is Harden Jab was just like the most overperforming common. And now the new version, honestly, probably not gonna get played. Probably pack filler. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so funny. I would almost rather it be like I draw a card and put one from my hand. And with the new outwit ability, I'd rather like build outwit cards I know face down.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, I would like that. Now we're really starting to feel like Yu-Gi-Oh.
All right, man. I think we should wrap this up because it's going to be like a super big episode. I don't want this to drag on too long for the viewers. Is there anything we didn't discuss that you think we absolutely got to pick up on?
Uh, Nothing, but I am doing our. Oh, so this does feed off the last topic. The next webcam circuit event and the last one that's open to the public is November 9th. I will be making the link tonight. It will be up tomorrow. There is no store sponsor for this event. Instead, somebody donated to me a 3 cases of Yu Yu Hakusho and 1 case of Cowboy Bebop to use at my leisure for prize support. So I'm going to take 1 case of Yu Yu Hakusho, and it's going to be the prize that, because typically a store would send us a case of product to use as pricing, and they would sponsor the event. So I'm going to take a case of Yu Yu Hakusho, but it's Yu Yu Hakusho set 1. So
Oh,
this is going to be a just normal standard event for webcam circuit, but the boxes for first and second place are going to be Yu Yu Hakusho set 1 retro boxes. Which are pretty good. Those things sell for like $50 to $100 a box. And even though chunks of it have been reprinted, so even if you're just a standard player, you can get your cool 3 Eyes of Hiei retro versions, Dark Tournament Looms retro versions. Or if you're getting into retro, there's a lot of like
Spirit
very,
Shotgun.
very, yeah, there's a
Spirit
lot of very powerful
Shotgun.
cards in there. So it's good for both sides. So November 9th, link's going to go up. It's limited to 64 players. Top 4, you get an invite to the retro. I mean, not to the. You get an invite to the December championship that is going to be $3,000.
Ooh.
Where 16 players go, top 4 from each of the 3 events, plus the top 4 overall from the others. And the way we have the payout structure is that 12 out of 16 of those players are going to walk away with at least $100. Anyway, there's just tons of money on the line there. So come and play in the webcam circuit event. If you do well, now speaking of retro, you're getting some retro products.
Very cool. I'm gonna mention that we are doing a unofficial stream for the Oceania Regional. Hopefully this video is up before then. I think I'm actually gonna upload it in 2 parts. And then I'm just gonna do Broberg's
Okay.
part and this part separately, just because it'll be easier on my computer. um, but yeah, I'll have the link down in the description below. We've got, I think it's a judge. I don't know if it's the TO or the judge running it. I only know their Discord name, so. But oh no, it's Carl Bennett. Carl Bennett, who I believe is already qualified, but he's gonna be running the stream. He wants to get coverage from Oceania out to the world, so we're gonna help him. I know David's gonna be there doing a round of commentary. I'm gonna be doing some commentary. We got Barrett, we got Bromley. We're running it back from Atlanta, basically. It's kind of funny. Everyone who is gonna cast UK is still too busy, and everyone who did Atlanta is casting again. So either way, we're gonna
Hey,
do what we can with like a grassroots effort. I'll have Carl's YouTube or Twitch. He's streaming on Twitch. I'll have the Twitch link down below. So definitely go check that out. Support our brethren overseas. Help grow the game as much as we can because every region matters. We want the game to be global, and we can only do that by supporting other regions. So That's gonna be it for me. Do you got anything else? Any shout outs you need to throw out, David?
Nope. I'm looking forward to commentating one round of Oceania tomorrow and then being out.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys. It starts 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern, and I believe 10 a.m. New Zealand time. I don't know what their time is called, unfortunately, but local time, it'll be 10 a.m. for them. So everything's gonna get started. That should be less than 24 hours from now, probably very shortly after you listen to this podcast. But we'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.